We're living through turbulent times because over the last 48 hours, there's been quite a shift in the tech world, particularly because Sam Altman, the former and possibly future CEO of OpenAI, was sacked quite dramatically on Friday. And there's been lots of developments over the last 48 hours to the point that he was fired on Friday, but actually could be reinstated anytime soon. So in today's show, I'm going to be sharing some highlights or some insights around the possible causes as to why he was sacked, and also whether we need to have any cause for concern, particularly because of the power that these tech titan companies have. And also, are there any lessons that we could potentially learn as people are considering moving back into the workforce, whether you're a baby boomer who is looking for a job or you're a baby boomer already inside a job, but you're looking more into the future about the future of work because at the moment you can't afford to retire. So here we are, 48 hours later. And Sam Altman, who was one of the co-founders of OpenAI. And when we think about it, OpenAI and ChatGPT and generative AI literally just exploded into our lives about a year ago. So if we go back to last summer, nobody had any idea that this type of AI, generative AI, was going to be dominating our lives. And it's really significant because this iteration of tech literally is the greatest development if we think about it from the days of the iPhone to the App Store, and that was around 2007, 8, 9. And so this is a really big deal. But why was he sacked? Now, none of us know because we're on the outside, so this is mere speculation as to some of the reasons why that he could have been sacked. Now, the board gave out this statement that he wasn't consistently candid. I do love the way that boards put their statements together from a PR point of view, but apparently he wasn't consistently candid with the board with regards to his communications. Now, that could mean a whole range of things. Now, if we just step into the shoes of the board for a moment, because the board of directors of any organization does have this strategic governance. It is responsible for the strategic direction as well as the products and services of whatever the organization is delivering. And so maybe there was a breakdown in communication regarding what was or was not communicated. However, the style of the sacking tends to suggest that this came as a surprise, particularly to Sam and no doubt Greg, his co-founder, but also Microsoft. So what could have been some of the reasons as to why beyond this statement? Well, OpenAI actually started as a non-profit organization, and then it has transitioned into a for-profit organization. So where you have a non-profit organization, the mission is really clear, and in the name itself, maybe it's a little bit ironic, it's called OpenAI, and the actual software was open source, which means that anyone who's a developer, engineer, or somebody who's got tech chops really could build on top of the technology, which thousands of companies have already started to do. But if we think about the transition, was there a break in the transition from a non-profit world? Because once you transition into a for-profit world, then we know profit takes prominence with regards to meeting the bottom line. So was that one of the reasons as to why that maybe the structure of it didn't quite work? Was it to do with a security breach, for example? Because obviously all of the data that OpenAI and ChatGPT is trained on data. Was there a breach? Was there something that was being generated from the data that was held back? We don't know. This is speculation. But what I find quite interesting is the fact that you have Microsoft. Microsoft has invested 10 billion, whether it's pounds, whether it's dollars, it's a lot of money into this company. And what is really surprising is that Microsoft does not have a seat on the board. With that level of investment, that is quite startling. But is there, if we look a little bit more subtextually, Microsoft is a tech giant and OpenAI has become a tech giant, and both of them have access to data. Now, I don't know, was there some kind of competition between who has access to the largest data set, for example, or the largest amount of users? Because if we think about ChatGPT, within a month or so, it gathered 100 million users in such a short period of time. So if you have a tech giant like Microsoft, for example, that go back to the days of Bill Gates, he wanted to place a laptop, a computer into every home, and he certainly has succeeded around that. And as a result of that, in the laptop is the Windows operating system. So with the Windows operating system, Microsoft has access to us, millions, billions of people around the world, and potentially data. Because last week they had a conference called Microsoft Ignite, where they were launching new products, and there's talk about putting Copilot inside of Windows. And so was there a sort of competition possibly building up between ChatGPT, or let's say OpenAI, and their access to data and training data, as well as Microsoft and their access? Who knows? Time will tell, but it is said that Microsoft was completely surprised as to what actually happened. So Sam was sacked, and then his co-founder, Greg, in solidarity, but said, Sam goes, I go. And so that was what was sort of really fueling the internet, and particularly X or Twitter, in terms of, well, what actually happened. But this does give us cause for concern, because if the style in which he was sacked by a board, and don't forget that he equally was a board member, so there appears to be some type of breakdown in communication. But for us as consumers who are already hooked into AI, generative AI, and let's just think, there's a plethora of them out there in the world. You've got ChatGPT, you've got Bard, you've got Bing, which Microsoft might drop and then use Copilot into Windows. You have like DALL-E 2, you have Midjourney, you have Adobe Firefly. There's just a whole host of this generative AI that is facilitating our lives in so many different ways. And so if the board, the people who control OpenAI, can sack one of their co-founders in the way that he was sacked, what confidence do we have as consumers and citizens with regards to the safety of technology? Because when OpenAI was set up, and it's called OpenAI, there was a sense that there's a transparency in terms of how this technology is being developed. And alongside that, it's the development of the technology, but also the protection of us as consumers, as citizens. Now, if they can sack their co-founder in this way, what confidence does it give us with regards to them protecting us as the mere public, now that profit has been introduced into the equation? So here in the UK, about 3 weeks ago, there was the first ever AI Safety Summit, where there were about 28 leaders from around the world that came together to really look at this question and concerns around safety. So actually what's happened with OpenAI has actually brought the conversation of accountability right, into the public domain. And so the questions of accountability and the questions of safety actually give us even more of an opening to step forward as citizens and think to ourselves, well, actually, we are on the receiving end of this new technology, but how much input do we have in the development and the protection and the safety of this new technology? There's about 7.9 billion people in the world, and let's say there's 1% or 0.1% of those who actually control AI and this new emerging technology, and also the kind of skyrocketing technology, which means that it's a handful in comparison to billions of people who don't know. So actually, maybe this is an opportunity for each and every one of us to be stepping forward, to be asking these questions, to be, liaising with these tech companies. So it's a responsibility that it's tech companies, together with local governments, together with central governments, and together with us as everyday people, are now able in some way, shape, or form bringing pressure to bear on these tech companies, because we're seeing the imbalance of power, or how power has shifted from governments into the hands of small conglomerates, which are these tech companies. And maybe what we're seeing here with this debacle, as it's turning out to be, openai, is the tussle for power and who will win. And if there isn't a level of consciousness brought into it, but also a level of who's looking out for the ordinary citizen like you and I, what is going to happen? What we're also seeing is that overnight, apparently, Sam is being brought back. He's been rehired. And there's a powerful lesson if that is the case, because one of the reasons and the leverage point is that if we look at it from like a workplace perspective and the composition of teams, allegedly what happened was the remaining group of employees, which was about 200 to 300 people, actually banded together and gave the board an ultimatum. Either you go and reinstate Sam and Greg, which is the other co-founder, or we all leave. Very powerful position to be in. But what it does point to is the power of workplace politics in the hands of employees. But what it also does suggest is that Sam, whoever he is, clearly is a powerful leader that can lead people in a way whereby there's loyalty and trust. And so the lessons that can begin to be learned from this is, it appears as if they have a championship team. And a championship team is built on the premise of trust and value. So there's somewhere in that world of openai where everybody shares the same kind of values and have imbibed the values. That's one thing. Secondly, top class talent. And this top class talent are prepared to walk if the board doesn't step down graciously, or if they don't, or they don't reinstate the co-founders, which is a very, very powerful message that is sent out into the workplace, that employees have power when people come together. So that's a lesson potentially. Also, Harvard Business Review, back in January of this year, they started this analysis and they put together a report that was looking at the 9 trends within workplace development post-COVID. So we all lived through the COVID years, which seems ages ago, but it's not that far away. But what they are looking at is, what can the world of work, the future of work, look like from 2023, we're coming to the end of it, and beyond? And there are a couple of things that were highlighted within this. And over the COVID period, there was this term that we became familiar with called quiet quitting. People just threw their hands in the air and it was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm now using this COVID period to re-examine, reassess my life, and then make different choices. And one of the things that Harvard Business Review identified is that there's this slow emerging trend coming from decision makers and the HR world of quiet hiring. Now, with quiet hiring, what they're saying and what they're recognizing is that at long last, employers are now shifting their gaze. And they're shifting their gaze away from this very rigid and structured, you have to have credentials, you have to have X years experience doing X, Y, or Z, and you have to, be somebody who's an influencer and who's known, through to recognizing, because there's so much turbulence in the world of work, is, does this person or do these group of people actually have the skills and the chops to help us solve our problems? And which is fantastic news, because what it does, it widens the talent pool. So the talent pool has been widened, firstly, because we're now in a global environment and people can be hired from all over the world. But COVID really did show that people have autonomy, and that was really driven, I would say, from Gen Z through to to millennials. And baby boomers like myself and people who are Gen Xers, that people do have autonomy, people do have choice, and they're beginning to exercise it. So what could you do as a baby boomer who is either looking to find another job, you're already in work, but you're looking to find another job, or you're outside of work and you're unemployed and you're job seeking, is to shift your kind of attention away from what I call pathetic advice. You know, don't put your age on it. Don't put the dates that you went to university. Don't put this, don't put that. That allows you to show up with who you are, but actually start combing through. Remove the job titles, because I think people get really trapped behind job titles. I am an X, I am a Y. It doesn't really matter as we continue to move forward into the future of work. It's more about what skills, what chops, what knowledge, what information, what insights do you have? And what I would do if I were you was to begin to scrutinize, analyze, and then put together your own portfolio and think about your portfolio through the lens of, how can I solve this particular company's problem? That's the shift that's taking place between what was the kind of pre-COVID world to the post-COVID world. How can I become a troubleshooter? How can I become a problem solver with the skill set that I have? So that's one of the things that was identified in this Harvard Business Review. It's about, well, there's quiet hiring, and I'm just kind of expanding what that could mean. Another thing they identified is the kind of diminishing of social skills, interpersonal skills. COVID impacted all of us in one form or another, but what they've reported is that there's a sort of lack of confidence, breakdown of interpersonal skills, there's anxiety. And so employers and employees, or people who are looking for work, think about, how can I improve my interpersonal skills, my critical thinking skills, my problem solving skills, my ability to work within a team, but also to use my initiative? What are my communication skills like? What am I like? Am I somebody who can do their own thing as well as working alongside a team? So the social skills, which is great because it's ordinarily known as soft skills, and not soft skills, they are human skills. How we're able to bring our whole selves from a positive point of view into the world of work by our kind of interpersonal skills. No man or woman is an island. So the sacking of Sam Altman and the potential rehiring of Sam Altman has brought to the surface questions about accountability, rightfully so, and opening up the dialogue that each and every person, doesn't matter where you are in the social kind of structure of life, you are impacted upon by technology. Technology is impacting on all of us. So what can you actually do to start to inform the decisions around that? What can you do to build your skill set? Because employers are recognizing that they don't have the bandwidth in terms of talent to take on the problems that are already here. And also, how can you begin to influence? How do you influence what's happening in technology? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Would love to know what your views are regarding, you know, this dramatic shift and change. And no doubt the internet's going to be alive for the next week or so. The buzz around, will he be reinstated? On what terms will he be reinstated? But there's lots of power and there's lots of observations that flow from what has happened, and it's about how you can extract those lessons and apply them into your own life as you're on this search for work, the future of work. I'd love to hear your comments. Please put your comments in the comment box below, and I look forward to seeing you all next week, next Sunday, on this channel, and please like, share and subscribe. Stay well and invite other people who could be interested in the topics that I touch here. I help baby boomers reinvent themselves psychologically, practically and technically so they can thrive in their third act of life. Stay well, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.